We all know the forest has its secrets, but the deep woods hold a darkness that is far older, far colder, and far more unsettling than any creature you learned about in school. When you leave the marked trail, you leave the protection of the map. You are entering a domain of primal fear, where logic breaks down and things that should not exist thrive. Tonight, the Chilling Channel presents 3 disturbing true accounts from those who ventured too deep into the wilderness and encountered the inexplicable, the things that watch the marked trails, and the places where people simply vanish. Welcome to the deep woods. You are not alone here. Story 1. The Ranger's Warning. Our first story comes from a veteran park ranger named Greg, who spent 20 years in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest. He thought he had seen it all until the day he was completely alone in the fire tower. The tower stood on the highest peak, offering a 360-degree view of the vast, unbroken forest canopy. It was a beautiful, lonely job. One Tuesday afternoon, high above the trees, Greg was scanning the horizon when he saw movement far below, near a secluded creek bed. It was a figure, small and distant, running. This wasn't unusual, but the way the figure moved it was running far too fast, with a jerky, unnatural gait, almost like a marionette being pulled quickly by strings. It wasn't human movement. Greg pulled out his binoculars. The figure was tall and spindly, dressed in dark clothes. It was running a perfect straight line through the densest thicket, a path no human could take. Then, the figure stopped, dead still. Greg, watching through the binoculars, felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. The figure slowly, deliberately, turned its head to look directly up at the fire tower. It was impossible. He was hundreds of feet up, but the figure was looking straight at him. Then, the creature raised one long, thin arm and waved. Not a friendly wave. A slow, mocking, possessive wave. Greg, terrified, stumbled back to his radio. He called in the coordinates, his voice shaking, asking for confirmation on any authorized hikers or researchers in the area. The dispatcher checked the logs, then replied with a single chilling sentence. "Ranger Greg, there is no one authorized in that section. In fact, that sector has been closed off since the disappearance 3 months ago." Greg didn't wait. He didn't lock the tower. He scrambled down the stairs, jumped in his truck, and drove until he hit pavement. He quit the job the next day. He never returned to the woods, forever haunted by the impossibly fast figure that knew exactly where he was. Story 2. The Trail Camera Discovery. This account comes from a hunter named David, who used a simple trail camera to monitor game activity deep in the Appalachians. What he captured proved that the woods held things far more dangerous than bears or deer. David had set the camera on a popular deer trail and left it for 6 weeks. When he returned, he was excited to check the memory card. He sifted through hundreds of clips, deer passing by, a raccoon, even a coyote. Then he hit the late night clips. On the 3rd night of the footage, at exactly 3:07 a.m., a figure walked into the frame. It was a person, but unlike a deer or bear, this person did not move. He was a tall man, wearing old, faded clothes that looked like something from the 1940s. He was standing perfectly motionless, facing the camera. His eyes were obscured by the heavy shadow of his hat. He just stood there for the entire 10-second clip. David initially thought it was a trespasser. He skipped ahead. The next night, at exactly 3:07 a.m., the same figure was there again, in the same spot, standing motionless. This pattern continued for 7 straight nights. Every night, at 3:07 a.m., the figure would appear, stand for 10 seconds, and disappear. On the 8th night, the camera showed nothing but static. Deeply unsettled, David grabbed his rifle and drove back to the spot. He checked the ground around the camera. It was a dense bed of pine needles and damp earth. If someone had stood there, they would have left a clear impression. There were no footprints, none at all. The ground was untouched. The figure, captured on digital film, had simply materialized in that exact spot, stood for 10 seconds, and vanished without disturbing a single pine needle. David packed up the camera, deleted the unsettling footage, and decided that some questions are best left unanswered in the dark. Story 3. The Hidden Staircase. This final story taps into the terrifying phenomenon of inexplicable structures found in the middle of nowhere. Structures that break the laws of nature and logic. Our witness is a hiker named Clara, who was exploring a remote national forest in Oregon. She made a navigational error and found herself far off trail, surrounded by dense, silent trees. As she pushed through a thicket of brush, she stopped dead in her tracks. Right in front of her, in a small clearing where the trees grew unnaturally silent, stood a perfectly built wooden staircase. It looked like something removed from the inside of a massive colonial house. It was stained dark, with an intact banister, and it rose about 15 feet, ending abruptly at the open air, going nowhere. It was sturdy, clean, and utterly out of place. Clara felt an overwhelming wave of primal dread. This was wrong. This was an object of civilization planted in the deepest wilderness. She felt an intense, irrational urge to walk up the stairs. She felt a pull, a curiosity that was almost painful. She took one step toward the wooden structure. As she did, she heard a sound, a heavy, scraping thump coming from the air above the staircase. It sounded like something huge shifting its weight. Clara didn't look up. Every instinct screamed at her, "Do not go up those stairs. Do not look at what is at the top." She turned and ran blindly, pushing through thorns and branches, not stopping until she heard the sound of a distant river. She found a ranger station 2 hours later. When she told her story, the ranger simply nodded slowly and gave her a laminated card with the number for the local sheriff's office, advising her to never go off the marked trail again. The ranger said nothing about the stairs, but Clara knew they were real. And she knew that whatever or whoever built them did not want anyone seeing what they were built for. They stood there, waiting, a portal to an unknown terror in the silent heart of the woods. The darkness is vast, and the woods are always hungry. These stories teach us that when we venture into the true wilderness, we are entering a territory where human rules and human safety do not apply. Thank you for staying with us on the Chilling Channel. Until the next unsettling hour, stay safe and stick to the marked trail.